We continue to follow breaking news, so we've got more information. We reported at the top of the hour that the Menendez brothers were resentenced. Now we know what that resentencing is. They've been resentenced to 50 years to life, which is what Christina Gonzalez, our reporter in the courtroom, guessed that it would be based off of where things were going. We understand that both Lyle and Erik Menendez spoke virtually, both of them in tears, pleading with the judge to resentence them, and they now have been resentenced, which means the next move in all of this will be a parole hearing where they could have the opportunity to be granted parole. Governor Newsom also can weigh in on their case. This is a live look outside the courtroom. This just happened in the last few moments, so we expect to see all the media from around the world focused on the Menendez family. When they come out, their attorney, Mark Geragos, likely will be speaking at that podium right there. We also likely will hear from the district attorney of Los Angeles County, Nathan Hochman, who was against this potential outcome today.
So we see all of the microphones there reminding you all of that press is lined up there outside. It's a limited space in that courtroom. Our reporter, Christina Gonzalez, among the few people allowed inside that courtroom. We talked about it earlier. No cell phones. They all had to relinquish their cell phones. No cameras inside that courtroom. So she will come out and report to us as to what's going on as it continues throughout the day. We thought this was going to be a two-day resentencing hearing starting today, meaning it would go through tomorrow. So this is a big development that we're getting some answers on this first day. We did not know if the Menendez brothers would testify themselves in the hearing. We understand, as Alex was just saying, that they spoke with the judge in this case. It is a very, very big development. This is some of the kind of news that the family and the Menendez brothers were hoping for, and that is to get a resentencing. Remember, they were sentenced to life without parole in 1989 for the shotgun murders of their parents. Now, with this 50 years to life, what does that mean as it goes now to the parole board? Yeah, and they were, the murder was in 1989, the sentencing was in 1996. And they have been behind bars this whole time. And for many of those years, they did not think that they would have the chance of getting out. Now it looks like they've got a pretty good chance of getting out. And so what it means for the parole board, I mean, in reality, not that much, because Governor Newsom had already asked the parole board to hear their case no matter what. So this was they were getting a day before the parole board, whether this happened or not. What this does, though, is it increases the momentum as it heads towards that parole board as well. Harvey Levin from TMZ, who's been with us several times, has sort of argued for months now that this hearing was kind of irrelevant because the governor had already said, parole board, check this thing out. Ultimately, it's likely going to be up to Governor Newsom to decide one way or another in terms of their fate. But this would make it easier, I think, politically for Governor Newsom to have some of that political cover to ultimately make the decision to release the Menendez brothers. It seems like that's where we're headed in the next few months, but we will see. It's interesting to see that the people, this has all just happened, so they haven't made their way out. We expect that the family is going to be pretty emotional and pretty triumphant as they get together and try to figure out what happens next here. Right. So with this recommendation to the parole board, it is one step as the case is being considered. You had psychologists weigh in, people from the prison weigh in, friends and family. In fact, you heard from Christina Gonzalez about the ex-inmate who had been in prison with Lyle and Erik Menendez, gives them great credit for his own freedom. Reporter Christina Gonzalez has an update for us now. Remember, she has been inside that hearing all day. Christina. You got it right, Christina. You called it exactly.
You know, and it's interesting, when I went back, it was really the brothers, one at a time. First Lyle, then Erik, were giving very impassioned pleas. They were begging for forgiveness from the judge. They were admitting that what they had done was horrific, apologizing to their families, which we are waiting for them to walk out at any moment, and we'll go to that when they do. But, I mean, the family was sobbing as they were listening to them, admitting, Erik at one point admitting how lost he was, how his life, he thought it was over, but in his words, he said it was an act of service that changed him. He said he started getting involved with some of the older prisoners and their hospice program, which has now developed, and that he began, quote unquote, living with a purpose. And he said, and I wrote this down, the rest of my life, I promise you, Judge, talking to the judge, inside or outside, I will not stop helping others because it gives meaning to my life. And he said to my family, you do not deserve what I did to you. And like I said, believe that even people who believe that they perhaps should not go free have to feel for what the family has gone through. The judge himself admitting at one point that this is a very unique situation where you have family members who are family to the victims and the people who murdered them,
Christina?
and are still asking for them to come out. Now they're walking out and you can see the smiles on their faces. In front is Ana Maria Baralt, and that is Geragos is being hugged by one of the men who's married to one of the cousins. They're going to be making their way to the podium that we have set up. Teresita's back there. They're just, really, really, really emotional about this whole thing. They would have liked to have seen them free right away, but let's hear what he has to say, because this is definitely for them a victory. And in the words of Diane Hernandez, whom you'll see, she came up with the walker. She's coming up the back. This is the miracle that when she came up, she was asking for. So hopefully she will make it to the podium if the media allows them to, and because that's where they will speak. They're making their way again. That's Diane Hernandez. She is the sister to the mother of the daughter of the sister to Kitty Menendez. It's a woman in the light blue, and her speech there brought everybody to tears.
So
let's listen.
It really has been a remarkable couple of years. This month, actually, 2 years ago, and I don't know where Cliff went, but there he is. Hold on, come here, Cliff. Come here. Only when Cliff gets up here.
Hey, guys.
Cliff Gardner. 2 years ago, Cliff and I were talking about another case, and he mentioned the Menendez brothers, and it was a case that I obviously had followed, and he said he had prepared and he was about to file a pro per, believe it or not, writ of habeas corpus. 2 years ago, I said, well, you know what, Cliff, we talked about it. We enjoy working together, now have an undefeated record, continue to have, and we decided let's do it. I don't think he, who does nothing but post-conviction work, or me, who I hate doing post-conviction work, ever thought 2 years later we'd be standing here after 35 years with this wonderful family who I've grown to love like my own family. And now we see the pot at the end of the rainbow, so to speak, or their freedom. I want to do a hat tip to Judge Jessic, who was able to cancel out all the noise surrounding this, all of the grandstanding, all of the political back and forth. And he did what the code section said he should do. He did what justice said should happen. And he struck the special circumstance, and he sentenced them to 50 to life, which means they're immediately eligible. For those who don't know, in a couple of weeks, there is already a clemency hearing set. There's also a response due in the habeas next month?
Yes.
Next month. And so all bets are still on. The resentencing has happened. I actually made a call. First call I made was to Leslie Abramson. I couldn't get a hold of Leslie. It went straight to voicemail. I have long admired Leslie. I think about her often in this courthouse, actually, because one of the last trials she did was in this courthouse. She did say something a number of years ago that no amount of TikTok TikTokers was going to ever change anything, and so I was calling to tease her. And so, Leslie, I will tell you, it's a whole different world we live in now, and one of the things that I think is important is to recognize that, like the legislature has done, we have evolved. This is not the 90s anymore. We have a more robust understanding of a lot of things. And I hat tip to the family, and I'll let them, after we answer a couple of questions, speak about what this means to them. I just know that on a day like today, that redemption is possible. And to those, you saw X-rated talk today, you saw kind of the ridiculous nature of the cross-examination. You can turn anything on its head. The fact is, the Menendez brothers have done remarkable work, and today is a great day after 35 years.
Did you talk to Erik and Lyle really quick after this? What's your reaction?
I told them to call me on their burner phone.
Are you disappointed that you guys did not introduce the parole board instead of them walking free tonight? Is there a little still?
I argued, and I still believe that they should be out.
Who are you? What's your name?
Mark Geragos, how are you? Hi. So I understand what's happening. The governor would only have that ability constitutionally if the parole board does it. Right now, what is pending is, because it's 50 to life, they're immediately eligible. The first thing that is set is the clemency hearing, which is, I believe, on June 13th. So the clemency board, and this is something new, will make a recommendation to the governor, and then the governor will take action either before or after. So, yes, Jim.
When you around Thanksgiving, you said, I want them to be home by then, and people said it's never going to happen. You said they will be resentenced. This is a huge victory for you and for the family, clearly. What do you think a realistic timeline is now to finally see freedom for the brothers?
I've said ever since my failed prediction of Thanksgiving dinner that 2025 would be their year. I mean, they got caught, ironically. They've been caught in politics 30 years ago in a DA's race. They got caught in politics now in 2024. And I'm hopeful now that Judge Jessic did what he was supposed to do. And I'm hopeful that now that the right thing will be done and they'll walk out. You know, they've got a family, and I think the takeaway for me today was that the family, this has become, their trauma has become kind of the subject of prurient interest. But they are a real family, real people who have lived through unimaginable horrors. And I'm hopeful and glad that we're one huge step closer to bringing the boys home. Thanks. Yes.
Are you concerned at all that this would get held up on an appeal if the
No, I'm not concerned with that. I think at this point, the record is such that the code section calls for this. This was from my mind, this was the minimum that they should get. It also, somebody mentioned this to me in the courtroom just now. This is a decision that I think will reverberate in the criminal justice system. One of the things that we have argued all along, and what the judge said today, the judge commented today, this is one of the most remarkable, and he used that term, remarkable transformations. And he said, while the crime was truly horrific and remarkable, the 35 years since, what they have accomplished is remarkable, with no hope. And we've said that since day one. And so, with no hope, this encourages people who are incarcerated to make the right decisions, to take the right path. So it's just a win-win on so many levels. And I will let the family talk. I could not, yes.
Mark,
I have not talked yet to Joan, but I'm hoping I'll let the family say that. I'll let the family say that.
I let you smoke a cigarette. Mark! You have a fucking dicer.
Hi, everyone.
Mark!
This is a good day.
It's Mr. Hochman's PR person.
Mark!
No, can you do me a favor? No, I don't have a light. He does right there. You're welcome. You tell Mr. Hochman does. He's right over there. He's hiding in the bushes.
We have a lot of thank yous today from the family. Mark Geragos, Cliff Gardner. Thank you so much. You have brought hope to this family that we didn't see coming.
You know, we would be remiss if I didn't thank Alexandra Kazarian, my partner who's here behind me, if I didn't thank Milena Blake and Mike Romano. There's Milena back there. I apologize for Milena. It's got to be tough to sit at a council table and have me there kind of bulldoze my way through. So I say that I thank X-Rated for having to subject himself to that brutality. But most of all for the family. I just couldn't be happier for you guys. It really is tremendous. And thank you. Talk to them.
This is the step in the right direction, but is there any worry or hesitation at all about the brothers facing the parole board?
Okay, yes. So, right, this is a step towards the parole process. Of course, June 13th, they will meet with the parole board. And, you know, in the state of California, it's a pretty stringent process. So we are very hopeful. I thanked Mark. I thanked Cliff. There's an entire legal team. But ultimately, we are here today with this result because of Erik and Lyle, because they chose to live their lives with clarity and a purpose of service that the judge was impressed by. And so a huge thanks to them, too, for being the kind of people that we could bring home.
What was it like for you to hear the brothers speak in their own words and say in no uncertain terms what they did was horrible, they blamed no one but themselves, they asked for forgiveness and they thanked their family, and they embraced you with love from the family?
It was very moving. I think everybody in the courtroom was moved by that. They've said those words to me personally before. That was not the first time that I had heard them take full accountability for their actions, for the effect that it had on my life, and express that. So I'm glad everyone else got to hear it.
Can you talk about the brothers' reaction to the results of
I haven't talked to them yet. Yes. I couldn't really see. You know, I mean, they're on a screen, so I couldn't really see facial reactions, but I imagine that they will be pleased from today, you know. Yes, so for my Spanish-speaking reporters, you have a treat today, which is my cousin Marta is going to follow me, and she is going to speak to you in Spanish. So you'll get the full thing and answer questions as well for anyone who is talking and speak. And what's next? Well, we still have, you know, we have to go through the parole process, which is going to be very difficult for the family. That is a difficult process for the family to go through. We were certainly hoping for manslaughter, time served, so that we wouldn't have to go through this process, but we will eagerly step through those doors if that means getting them home. So also I want to say a thank you before I forget to Judge Jessic for being fair, for reading the law as it was written. Like Mark said, for not getting caught up in the drama of the situation, but for simply applying the law. So grateful to him as well. I am so happy that I wore waterproof mascara is how I'm feeling, because I have been crying all day long. So these are tears of joy for sure, and we're very excited. Yeah. Thank you. Can you hold on until Marta talks? Thank you so much. Yeah.
Dígame, mi nombre es Marta Cano Hallowell. Yo soy hija Trina de Lyle y Erik, hija de Marta, que es una de sus tías, hermana de José.
So, I mean, unbelievable emotion and joy from a family that has been waiting for and wanting this day for so many years. It's interesting, Christine, you have a situation here that they're the family members of the victims and the murderers. And at this point, everybody that's alive, that's a member of that family, are siding with the people that are responsible for the murder, saying that they have changed, they have served their time, that they deserve to be free, that they would be comfortable welcoming them into their home. And the aunt, who we see there on the left-hand side, testified to that earlier this morning. And they want to see Lyle and Erik out.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot from Anna Maria Baralt. She is the woman there in the white pants. She's been talking a lot for the family. She is a cousin. And I'm moved by her statement where she said she's glad she wore waterproof mascara because she's been crying this entire time. It is a huge development that we are witnessing right now, where you heard attorney Mark Geragos say the Menendez brothers are right now, at this moment, eligible for parole. Now, still a process. Goes to the parole board. That's going to take some time. As you heard the cousins say, it's going to be difficult for the family to go through all of that. That's when you have people weigh into the parole board and tell them why the Menendez brothers should be set free. Now, they did not get what they really wanted, which is manslaughter, a resentencing of manslaughter, which would equal time served, and that would be a matter of just processing them through the prison, and they would be freed. So now we're going to go to the parole board. We have these other processes that can happen, and then it goes to the governor as well. So they're not done yet. When Geragos had said he'd like them home for Thanksgiving, maybe this coming Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that was last Thanksgiving.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is the development that they wanted, a second chance for Lyle and Erik Menendez, a chance at freedom after 35 years in prison.
Let's listen back in.
Mark Geragos, Mike Romano, Alexandra Kazarian, Milena, Cliff Gardner, all of them. This is something my grandmother Joan has fought for 35 years. I really wish she was here today, but I'm really excited to give her the news. Beyond that, I really hope that this sets the precedent for other LWOP inmates who have shown transformation and change and have done the same as Erik and Lyle, and created careers for themselves and created new hopes for themselves while they have been incarcerated. So with that, thank you for everybody's support.
All right, Diane. All right. Hi, good afternoon, good evening.
Step up and pray. Step up to the mic.
De nada.
¿Puede decir cómo se siente?
Numb. No sé. No, estoy muy feliz y con esperanza. Por fin. La primera vez en 94 se me hace. Fue una injusticia.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Part of this press conference, Christina.
Un milagro.
If you can hear me, the woman who's speaking in Spanish right now is Diane Hernandez. Now, she is the daughter of Kitty Menendez's sister. Very emotional woman. She has been through this from the beginning. She actually spent, I remember, she testified in both trials, and she spent a year living with the brothers at one point. She was the one who testified that while she was staying with the brothers at the house with Jose and Kitty Menendez, that they were not allowed to walk down the hallway when Jose was with one of the boys in a room. And that was her testimony back then. She has aged a little bit since then, we all have, but she still remembers very clearly and talked about that today again in the trial, about how she was not allowed to say that on the second Menendez trial because all the sexual abuse stuff had not been allowed in, and she was very upset about that. But she considers herself to this day very close to both brothers. They were their cousins. She spent a lot of time at their home, and she was a key witness during the trials. Today she got up there, and she was the one who actually brought everybody in that courtroom to tears, because she actually turned to the judge at one point and she said, "I'm begging you. I'm begging you. Her mom is very sick. Her mom, Kitty's sister, testified for the judge a while back, and the judge did that because he knew that she was very sick, as was Jose Menendez's sister, and he knew that they may not make it. So back in November, he actually took their testimony, and they taped it in case they couldn't come back, and they have been coming back until very recently. Both of them are in very, very their health is not good, and they admitted to that in court. So that what she was saying is, please, please allow them, I'm begging you, because I want my mom to be able to hug them. And that was emotional for everybody in there. You could see the brothers on the camera, on the WebEx, just, it was the first time I saw them in the kind of emotion that I have not seen from them since the first trials. So that's what's going on right now. She's actually a Spanish speaker, so she's also taking questions from the Spanish speakers. Now, I am going to toss it to Diane, so to see what, because I believe she has some information for us as well. Let's go to that.
Sweet. Great job, sweetie. Yeah, great.
Hello, everyone. My name is Honore Brown.
Actually,
Anerae Brown, like the color. I'm the person they refer to as X-rated. A lot of people, there's a lot of information out there about my personal experience being incarcerated with Lyle and Erik, ultimately having them come to be mentors for me, and even me becoming a sponsor for Erik as a life prisoner with 31 to life, becoming a youthful offender, seeing the laws change, and ultimately being free. Doing the CRA exam myself, going through the board myself, I can assure everyone here that the brothers will do a great job when they get to board. I'm very proud of them for continuing in this way to lead. When I say that they're leading, what I mean is that the fact that they pursued so many different rehabilitative opportunities, that they instituted so many different programs and made it this far, is going to produce a sort of hope in a hopeless environment that people have never seen. And I know those jaded types who would like to say that this is some special thing and it doesn't apply to everyone. Me standing here being free is a statement to the contrary on that. It is, in fact, going to have a positive impact on that environment. People who wouldn't have went to rehabilitative programs, who wouldn't have done self-help because they were hopeless, can now believe that if they do the right things and that they do it with great consistency, that they can see a positive outcome similar to this. And so this is a victory for restorative justice. This is a victory for other people who have changed their lives in that hopeless circumstance and will have an opportunity to be able to go to board themselves if they keep doing the right thing.
I have a question. If you had not met Lyle and Erik in prison, do you think you would still be in prison?
I would still be in prison, in my humble opinion. I believe that the behaviors that I was engaging in as a gang member, as somebody who was hopeless with a life sentence, I believe that I would have made my change as a result of the implementation of the law, like a lot of people have done. And ultimately, they're still there because their change can be questioned. When there's positive reinforcement, I don't like to tell people that I have something good for them when I ask them if they would like to participate, because if they knew, they might only accept the opportunity for the reward. So I like the fact that, you have people who make a decision to change, and it's an inherent thing. And I had that opportunity, and I believe that if not for Lyle and Erik, I may not have believed that for myself as early as I did, to allow me to have already been living that life when the law changed, instead of being motivated after it changed. I'll take anything that'll cause someone who's done something horrible to sincerely want to change their lives. Whatever we can do to tip that domino for them, I'll take it. However, for those who decided to do it when there was no hope, I think that's a greater statement about the sincerity of their change.
I'm curious what you thought of their statements today. This is the first time the public has been able to hear from them during these hearings. What did you hear when they spoke?
As someone who communicates with them frequently and still has spent more time with Lyle and Eric than I have with my mother, even though I've been free for 7 years, right? I knew that about them, that they had accepted responsibility, that they, even in an itemized way. So I thought it was more, because it's a very consistent thing with them.
So what was it like for you to hear the DA consistently pounding them that they hadn't accepted responsibility when you knew that they already had?
That was very challenging for me, but I think it was rewarding the fact that after they had given an itemized statement of their insight, their remorse, very specific, what they were remorseful for, what they had insight for, how they felt about the way they'd impacted the family, for him to stand up and still repeat the fact that they had no insight, that they didn't understand and weren't accepting responsibility, highlights the fact that there was nothing that anyone could say that would have changed their tune. That was their song, and they were going to sing it. Yep. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Listening right there to Andre Brown, who's somebody who we've featured several times on the news here, who's somebody who's very passionate about what's happening. Christina Gonzalez, back to you as somebody who's been following this so closely. Your take on what we just witnessed.
Family's going to try to leave, but I want to show you somebody. Let's see if, Gino, you can take a look at the lady in the white jacket with the blonde hair who everybody's trying to surround. That is actually Erik Menendez's first wife. Okay, and let me tell you, it's interesting because her daughter, her name is Tammy Menendez, and she was his first wife. Talia Menendez is her daughter, the young girl with the pinstripe. They're walking right now behind Diane. And Erik Menendez actually adopted her. He's not his biological child, but he adopted her. And, you know, they were here from the beginning. They didn't want to talk. I don't know if we can try to get a little bit, if I can try to get a little bit close before, but let's see. Let us see what we can do here, because I know Ana Maria is talking a little bit. Let's see if we can listen to what she has to say.
That they will be able to speak on their own behalf the way they did at the end of the hearing today.
How did you find that statement today? Was it powerful to you?
It was powerful to me. However, I have heard those words before from them. They have been, that's not news, that wasn't news to us.
What's the first thing you're going to say to the boys?
We're actually going to let them walk away because this is getting a little bit, you know, one of the things the family has asked us to do is to be respectful when they're trying to leave. And what you saw, I mean, we're all very excited and we're all trying to get, but she's not saying anything that you did not hear before. And, you know, out of respect for them, I have been through this with this family for now 2 trials. Now, behind us, how are you guys doing? Okay? Congratulations. So anything you want to say before you go? I just, you know, what's going through your heart right now? You've been through such a long. Is there any way to even put it in words?
I'm just not, yeah, I haven't processed it fully yet. So
You're still in shock, right?
Yeah, I just want to tell my grandmother.
Go tell her. And how's she doing health-wise? Comfortable. Thank you so much. Her grandmother is actually, let me go through the players. She was 9 years old when this happened, and her grandmother is one of the sisters to Kitty Menendez. And when this happened, she was saying up there, she was barely 9 years old, but as she said it in my notes, she grew up watching her family in front of the television being mobbed like this by media. But what really hurt, and imagine her growing up seeing this, is they became the butt of jokes in things like Saturday Night Live. Every late night show, through the 2 trials, there were these horrible jokes about the family. And she talked about having to live through that and how this family has been traumatized not only by what happened, but by going through the trials and how difficult it is knowing all that to still want these guys to come out free. So she spoke about that quite a bit, and it speaks to their support, which is expected. And I will tell you one thing, though, about the judge that I wanted, because when I went back and I heard him, he said, you know, I am making this decision. I am bound by the law that does tell me to consider that they have been rehabilitated after they went into prison. But what seemed to make a difference for him, because he expected the family, in a way, as weird as it was to have them be members of both, he expected them to be supportive. But it was the letters, the many letters he got from people who worked the prison system. He actually spoke about one lieutenant who wrote to him, for 25 years I have worked the prison system. I have never even considered writing a letter saying somebody should be freed. But this is the first time I'm doing this, and it's because I really believe these two should have at least a chance. And that's what they're getting now. It's a chance. They're not going free. And that's what the judge says. I don't feel comfortable saying leave and be free, but they deserve the chance to be considered for freedom at some point. And that is what he hopes the parole board will do, or as you have mentioned, Alex, the governor does have a say in this. There's a hearing June 13th with all those elements from the parole board that he's going to consider. He has, at that point, he could grant them clemency. We don't know if he will. We'll have to wait. We'll be there. We will give you all the reports. But that is the other avenue they're going with on this. But today, to recap, it's a huge, huge positive step for this family. And as you can see, they were not wanting to go in front of the parole board to do this again and again and again. But they will do it if they have to.
Yeah, well, we are now watching the Fox 11 News at 6 o'clock. I'm Alex Michelson, along with Christine Devine, Cristina Gonzalez joining us as well. The big breaking news, if you're just joining us, the Menendez brothers have been resentenced. Their new sentence, which was before life without the possibility of parole, the new sentence is now 50 years to life. What that means is they are now eligible for parole. And as Christina just said, they will be headed to the parole board. Governor Newsom has the ability to let them go right now. He could make that decision tonight, but he's indicated that he's going to wait to let the process play out, and that includes the parole board's hearing.
It is a huge, huge development for the family. We've been watching this play out in the courts for some time now. This is the news that they wanted, a chance at freedom. It is not exactly what they wanted. They were hoping for manslaughter and time served, but this 50 to life at least gives them some room to be eligible for parole.
Yeah. Joining us now on the phone is Harvey Levin, the founder of TMZ, who has spent time talking to the Menendez brothers, has a whole special about that, co-hosts a podcast with Mark Geragos, Two Angry Men, which is largely about this case. Harvey joins us now. Harvey, your reaction to the big breaking news?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be the killjoy here, but what the judge did is already happening. So, as you guys mentioned, the governor has already sent this to the parole board for a full review. And this ultimately would end up on the governor's desk, and whichever way you slice it. And the parole board has it. The parole board, I think, has already written its report on whether they're a danger to the community if they get out, and they may well have already written the report as well on whether they've been rehabilitated. There is a hearing, as Christina mentioned, in mid-June, and the Menendez brothers will appear, and they will make their case. But ultimately, this is going to end up on the governor's desk. And the governor, like you said, is going to make that decision. So even if the judge said, I'm not going to resentence them, the exact same thing would be happening. So, again, as Christina said, the real reason why Mark Geragos made a play for this today is he wanted to get the conviction changed from murder to manslaughter, which would have freed them instantly because they would have served more than 3 times the max. That didn't happen. So things are proceeding the way they were proceeding yesterday. So I don't really see a big change here.
Mark, Harvey, did you get the sense that Mark thought that that was a real possibility? Or is this really where where Mark and most people thought this was going today?
Yeah, I mean, are you asking me what Mark has said to me or what I believe Mark really believes?
The second, because that's more interesting and probably more true.
Yeah, I don't think Mark knew that this was a Hail Mary to ask for a change of the conviction. I think he knew that. And the likelihood was this was going to happen, but he wanted to, excuse me for mixing the, well, no, it's not mixing the sports metaphor. He decided to swing for the fences, and he didn't. And it didn't happen. But, again.
But he still hit a double, right? I mean,
he kind of hit a double. But, again, this was proceeding anyway. It was proceeding anyway. So it was, in some ways, a little bit more of theater than it was law.
Harvey, I want to weigh in here because I've been doing a number of stories on prison reform with a bachelor's degree program out of Cal State LA. We know that the governor commutes sentences every year. I'm leaning a little more towards you with the sentiment you're expressing here. 50 years to life is what they have been resentenced to. They've only served 35. The parole board could say, we're going to have you serve another 5 or 10 or all the 50. The parole board doesn't necessarily have to grant them parole right away with what we heard today. Am I right?
Well, Christine, yeah. I mean, look, if the governor hadn't stepped in, theoretically, they could have just slammed the door shut, the parole board. But again, the governor has taken the bold step here and set the wheels in motion. So now we just got to see what the reports show. And look, I mean, I've talked to the Menendez brothers, and I mean, I covered them during the trial, and I've spoken to them several times recently, and look, maybe I'm being fooled, but I don't think I am. They really are different people. And what impressed me was they had no hope of getting out. Their appeals were exhausted. Until a year and a half ago, there was really no hope for them ever to get out. Yet, they started a hospice program. They started a suicide prevention program, started a green space program, started counseling inmates on how to rehabilitate their lives. They did, and they got college degrees. So they did things to really improve themselves, even with no hope. And I think that says something, and I think that's going to resonate with the parole board.
I want to ask you both a question, because in covering these stories on this bachelor's degree program, I'm learning about all of the efforts at reform and also about the laws that have changed. You heard many people at that news conference talk about how the laws have changed, and one in particular is for people who've committed these crimes under the age of 26. There's new reform efforts on that. I've covered a lot of guys who've been out of prison who were serving life without parole. A lot of them were gang members, maybe 20, 21 when they committed their crimes. I'm wondering, though, from both of you, Alex, also with the politics, if this lands on Governor Newsom's desk, which it is he thinking a run for president or higher politics? How does that play politically around the rest of the nation? Does he want to be seen as that reformer who makes this big move? Or does he have to be concerned about other conservative states that are perhaps less likely to want somebody who's committed crimes like this to be freed?
Harvey, you go first, because I've got a strong take on this. You go.
Okay, well, I got two things. One is that I'm really surprised at Newsom, because I think the public's divided right down the middle on this. So as a political move, it's really risky, and I don't know that he gains, except for the fact that he's showing he's not necessarily calculating every move he makes. I also think that, if Newsom set this in motion and the parole board comes back and says they're no longer a danger and they're rehabilitated, I don't see how Newsom doesn't grant them clemency, because basically the parole board gave the answer that he asked for. So I don't see how he says no. So I think it's a really bold political move. The second point I want to make, Christine, is that I did not know that you were in this criminal justice program. Alex, you're sitting next to like a real Kim Kardashian there.
Well, let me just say, I've been reporting on it.
I've
been reporting on it.
She's featured it, and
I thought you were taking the course.
No, she's been behind bars with them several times profiling, though. It's really interesting work. Here's my take on why I think that this is not irrelevant, this whole thing, because it ties to Governor Newsom's politics. Let's assume for a second that he doesn't have sub-zero interest in running for president, and what he's been saying about that for years is not actually true, and that he does calculate most of the things in what he does. That means that the optics matter. And the optics here today is a judge in a courtroom is siding with the Menendez brothers. And that sends a message to people that maybe don't pay that close attention to this. The headline they're going to see is Menendez Brothers resentenced. And they're going to see the politics of all the family members of Kitty Menendez and Jose Menendez, who now are siding with Lyle and Erik, crying because they're so happy that they're being resentenced. That is good for them. And that's good for Governor Newsom to have more political cover going forward. Now, if that happens, and then the parole board sides with the Menendez brothers, then it's almost a no-brainer for Governor Newsom to jump on that train, a train that's already left the station. If this had gone the other way, I think it would have been really tough for the Menendez, and it would have been tough for Newsom, because it would have been yet another thing to throw a wrench into it. But in politics, momentum matters, and right now, momentum is on the side of the Menendez brothers. That's my take.
Do I get a 30-second rebuttal?
Go ahead.
Yes.
So I agree with that if the parole board decided this week, but the public has the attention span of a gnat. And I think in mid-June or probably July, when they come out with a decision, nobody's going to remember any of this stuff. And all they're going to know is Newsom freed Erik and Lyle Menendez. And that's going to be the headline. And I think a lot of people just say, you murder your parents, you stay in prison for the rest of your life. Yeah. That's what I've been hearing from a lot of people. And I think that's what's going to resonate. That's why I think this is a bold move, because frankly, I think the stars are aligned for clemency here. And this is I think, you know, I hear you, and if it were on the heels that the governor would do it, yeah. But they're not. It's not going to be on the heels. And I think this is an uncharacteristic, bold move that almost defies politics.
Well, Harvey, here's my thought here. Like we've been hearing, it is a new era when it comes to rehabilitation, reform, the concept of young offenders. Also, they talked about it being a different parole board than, say, 10, 20 years ago. The judge also, though, I'm noticing, sentenced 50 years to life. That's a resentence. He didn't do 40 years. Now, remember, they've served 35. He didn't do 40, which means, okay, hey, I'm really siding with you, Menendez, 40 to life. I mean, 50 is still a statement, and it does give the parole board some wiggle room if they feel the Menendez brothers are not ready to be released for whatever the reason.
And that's really what Geragos thought, too. I mean, I've talked to him, and he thought it would be 50 to life if you resentenced. So it's not surprising. And, you know, it's funny because, you know, I get Alex's point, and in some way, the judge gave the governor cover, but in a way, the governor gave the judge cover, too.
Yeah, they're all giving each other cover. But it's, to your point, though, about Governor Newsom, he realizes this thing is so high profile. When he launched his podcast, he decided to do updates on this case on his podcast, not even publicly.
We couldn't get him on.
As a way to drive traffic to his podcast. He's literally manipulating his role in this case and using it as a way to pump up iHeartRadio as the place to go for his podcast on this. He knows, and all of his team knows, that look at the amount of cameras that are there right now. He knows this is an international story. And he, if you've noticed, kind of likes to be in the middle of international stories usually. So this puts him right there.
It's sort of like 5 steps before you get a 747.
Let me just also talk about the current side of the times, and you mentioned Kim Kardashian, for example, and her work at prison reform. Harvey, having, as Alex said, gone into the men's prison in Lancaster with this college program, this bachelor's degree program, which is considered the first in person in the state, I'm learning a lot about the way we view prison. There's a whole movement right now to even do away with life without parole for reasons like it doesn't give anybody any hope. Do you create a better prison atmosphere if people have hope, if they can work to achieve things to make life better on the planet, even in prison, get a bachelor's degree, start programs, help other inmates? So I'm thinking back to when this crime happened, 1989. You covered it, I covered it, we were both there. It is truly a changed world in the way we view treating people and giving them hope, even though many have committed these heinous crimes. Again, the governor every year does commute some sentences and murder convictions. The men that I covered, I'm following 3 of them right now, all were sentenced to life without parole for committing murder, and they are free because of the change in law, the change in thinking, the change in policy. The public called for rehabilitation programs in prison. Are we just going to leave people sitting there just to rot in prison, or do we want people to try to rehabilitate?
Well, some people want that.
Well, yeah, some people do want it. And look, I'm sorry for being the devil's advocate, but I am a lawyer. And I get your point, but ultimately it's going to be a political decision.
Oh,
and you know, the governor ultimately.
I'm not pushing it. I'm telling you the theory of those people that are going in, professors trying to teach, that are part of this reform movement. Go ahead.
Right. I mean, look, I get your point, and I happen to agree with you. But then again, you look at, for example, the Manson family, that, you know, there have been numerous parole board hearings, and in a couple of cases, they were sympathetic to, you know, parole. There is no way a governor is going to let a member of the Manson family out. It's simply a political decision that looks past all of the elements of prison reform. And, you know, and that's not a slam on any one governor, but you know the public's taste for things. And when you look at something as heinous as that, or other crimes that we can certainly think of, because we've seen a lot of them, politics overtakes prison reform, I think.
Well, that's what Nathan Hochman was arguing. The district attorney was arguing just that. The nature of their crimes in this case is very different from some of the other cases and unique into its own nature.
Yeah, and let's talk about him for a second. Nathan Hochman, who got elected with a wave of let's get tougher on crime after George Gascon was criticized for doing the opposite, is now in this case, has gone really hard after the Menendez family in a way that Mark Geragos is often battling with him. What do you make of, we have not heard from him yet after this. We will, interesting to see if we see him do a press conference tonight. He doesn't usually shy away from the cameras. I'm actually supposed to host a community town hall with him tonight at 7:30. We'll see if he shows up to that.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Really?
What do you make
That's
of which was scheduled before this, obviously. What do you make of his role in all this and him choosing to go so intensely on this one?
Well, I mean, look, I happen to really disagree with him because what he's doing is he keeps talking about the crime and all this other stuff. It's really about 2 things, rehabilitation and public safety. And that's the only thing the parole board is going to ultimately consider. And he is just kind of relitigating the crime in all these news conferences, and even news conferences where he says the news conference is about the fact that I'm thinking about stuff. And so, you know, and he did that. And so,
and he criticized Gascon for doing that.
I know,
during the election.
And so this is reminding me, Christine, I think you'll remember this. You know, when Gil Garcetti had a string of losses, it didn't do him any political favors. And here you got A$AP Rocky, who was found not guilty in a really high-profile case, and now you've got him losing on the Menendez Brothers side. So, you know, the messaging was, I'm going to be tough on crime. The question is the public perceiving that he's delivering. And he's certainly trying. It's just in those 2 cases, at least, he hasn't succeeded.
Well, I'm thinking, too, of the many cases that we see on the news each and every day, and thoughts are of the victims and their families. And in this case, it's so unique in that the bulk of the Menendez family on both sides, the relatives of Kitty and Jose Menendez, are stepping forward for the brothers to be released. I'm thinking in some other cases, you might have victims' families saying, no way, we don't want that person released. So you have to factor in that issue as we're looking at this greater issue in general.
And it's interesting also that there was an attorney named Brock Lunsford who was working for Gascon, who wrote the original resentencing memo, who was taken off the case, is now suing D.A. Hochman. He sent me a statement that says, quote, "The court's ruling further validates the resentencing memo and Nancy and I provided in October while we paid for it with our jobs. I'm still grateful to see the rule of law prevail over politics today." That's from Brock Lunsford reacting to this. Harvey, I know we've been very generous with you've been very generous with your time. And any final thoughts on all of this?
My pasta is now totally cold. Thanks.
Yeah. Your pasta's cold. I know it's almost your bedtime. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what happens at this town hall. I'm really fascinated by this.
Yeah.
You know, you got to ask him about that. What, you know, you got ASAP and you got Menendez, and it's counter messaging to what he's been trying to do. And what's his next move?
Yeah, and we'll see if. I hope he shows up. It'd be interesting to have that conversation. We'll have that tonight on the Fox 11 News.
He's not a congressman. Of course he's going to show up.
We'll have that tonight on the Fox 11 News at 10. In the meantime, Harvey Levin, thank you so much. And, of course, you can watch Harvey on TMZ tonight at 7:30 here on Fox 11.
Thank you, Harvey. And, Alex, you make that note that we've not seen Nathan Hochman or the DA's office step to the podium. Let's go back out to Christina Gonzalez, who's there on the ground. Christina, any sign we're going to hear from the district attorney in office?
No. Nathan Hochman actually came by here this morning. You saw him in my earlier package, and he spoke to all of us, and then he left. He did not go up to the courtroom like he has done in the past. So when this finished, we asked the DAs there. None of them were going to talk in front of a camera. They are handing this over to Hochman, and I believe I heard from them that he was going to be at this event tonight. So be ready, because you might be able to get something from him at that point. Who did come out here to speak and had a lot to say and was very happy is Mark Geragos, defense attorney. Listen to what he had to say.
It's a whole different world we live in now, and one of the things that I think is important is to recognize that, like the legislature has done, we have evolved. This is not the 90s anymore. We have a more robust understanding of a lot of things.
Now, there were several people who spoke today on behalf of the brothers. You saw the family. One of them is Anna Ray Brown. Now, you may know him because of his music, but you know what? He was serving 31 years to life in prison for a gang-related murder when he was 17 years old. He was part of a crew of gang members who kicked in the door of a house and ended up shooting the wrong person in retaliation. Instead of shooting the person they thought they were going to shoot, they shot the mother, who had nothing to do with the original crime. So he was in prison with the Menendez brothers. He is out now, has been out for 7 years, has not reoffended, went through the parole hearings and everything. So we talked to him after court a little bit. Hear what he has to say. What's going through your heart right now? Is there any way to express it?
I feel a significant sense of joy and happiness, and also validation, in the sense that if someone does the right thing and changes their life, that they have a legitimate opportunity to see positive outcomes.
You had a chance to spend quite a bit of time with them in prison. Talk to me about what happened.
Well, unfortunately, I was a young gang member. I made some mistakes in my childhood. Ended up being arrested for a gang-related crime that devastated my community. Did my time, changed my life, made significant amends, and ultimately came home and continued to make amends, and had a lot to do with meeting the Menendez brothers.
What is it about meeting them that made such a difference to you?
The programs that they fought to have in place benefited people with my particular sentence more than it even benefited people with their sentence. They were serious about change, and I believed in it, and they believed in me, and I needed someone who was pushing me in the right direction.
Last question. You've been through the parole system and everything. You think they'll get a hearing before the end of the year?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I do.
You think they could be home for Christmas?
Yes, it's possible.
You think so?
Yes.
All right, I'll let you go. I know they need you. Thank you. And I think he's saying that not because he wishes it were so, but because he has gone through the system. I'm hearing the same thing. I think this will go to the parole board before the end of the year, depending on what the reports show. And there's mostly positive stuff, some not so positive, but most of it is positive. Everybody seems to think that, yes, the parole board will probably release them at some point, maybe for Christmas, who knows. But remember, June 13th, the parole board does their own presentation for the governor as to whether these two would be a danger to society if they were released. So there's still that avenue to go through, and there's some other possibilities. But today, definitely a victory for the Menendez brothers and for the family, which mostly supports them. The one person who did not passed away not too long ago. As of right now, both sides of the family support their release. I'm Christina Gonzalez Live. We'll have a lot more for you tonight at 10. I'm back to you guys in the studio.